TC, our library, we have 5 buildings for our school district, and there's 1 librarian. There are library assistants during school hours. As soon as that happens, they're gone. Like, there is not a librarian, even in our school, during school hours most of the time. The kids have a self-checkout.
Okay, because we had a school librarian, and I approached our school librarian, and she helped me when Kate was in middle school to do the game group, and we tag teamed it. And she even brought some games, but they were like really light party games, which I didn't complain about because I thought it was really cool.
As long as people are helping, who cares? Like I even supported the librarian in our local library who had like this terrible game about like wrestling, like luchador, like Mexican wrestling. It literally was just it was cards and dice, and the card told you what you rolled and what that meant you were doing. Literally no choice at all. Just like, I'm doing this, now your opponent has to like roll. It was like LCR basically, but that in war form. It was war in dice form.
Yeah, I played so many games of Guess Who. I can't even tell you.
Not like that bad of a game, like take out the fact that for a long time it was very culturally imposing, I guess. I don't know how to say it, but not very culturally sensitive.
Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to help you out. We're trying to think things that I ran into when I did this. And eventually what really happened was that Magic players took over the group, and I was fine with that because at least they were teaching themselves and showing up on a regular basis. So I was like, cool, okay, I got you guys invested in games. I didn't want to hear about the parents getting mad at me for making you buy boosters. I am out. But
I have people that actually I have a kid that comes and brings his Magic decks and tries to teach people too. I mean, I'm trying to serve these people from all different corners of the hobby. It's just it's tough. It's tough, a lot of people are telling me like, yeah, I think there should be something for that, and telling me they're helping me, but then it's now been like 2.5 weeks and I haven't heard back.
Well, I can't tell you how many times I had parents come up and be like, oh yeah, this is really great, we'll help, and like I never saw them ever again. I mean, it was like, yeah, okay, that's great. And
and there's like some things to that. Like I mean, on the teacher side, one of the frustrations I got too was like, I don't know, at least in some of my experiences, when your administration is so not helpful and like blah, blah, blah and whatnot, like it's getting harder and harder, I think, for a lot of educators to put in time. So when you're like, hey, do this, it'll be 2 hours after work or whatever, and most people are just like,
here's what I think is going on. I think that like if Gamers Club was recognized as a legitimate activity, I think I would have to like get a stipend or something. I don't know if there's like a gray area there because it's something I do for volunteer.
Well, from what I know, having talked to people in the districts I work in, is like if you comparative it to say athletics or whatnot, there are some that get stipends, and then there's just some that don't. I don't know. Like, for example, even for me, like back at East Union, I did science club, ran that for 4 or 5 years, not an extra dime on my paycheck.
Yeah. Well, that's the way it was for me in my first school. I didn't know if that was the reason that they were having a hard time legitimizing it for the form so that they could like pay for somebody to be there and just help. But, it's something where I feel like there is supposed to be balls rolling, but I don't no longer hear the sound, from where I'm at. Like the sound of progress is definitely not noticeable. Yeah. So I hope that things will kind of turn around, but this isn't my time to talk about all my problems. I did have some pretty inspiring things I'm going to announce on the show though.
Carissa used to do me and Carissa. I did the board game night, and Carissa used to do the creative writing, and we never saw a dime out of anything. But but it was really cool because I got to help kids get learn things, and Carissa got to inspire people to be creative kids, and they actually published their own book and stuff. And I really understand, Joe. I understand how unthankful this stuff can be. I get it, and
well,
I'm trying to think of things to help you out, man. What I can do over here.
No, I appreciate it, but like today was great, seriously, and I'm going to talk about that. But I want to get this show rolling. So
sorry for derailing.
No, you're fine. I appreciate the help. I do, and I don't want to make it sound like there's like today was inspiring. I'll talk about it later. Okay, we'll get into it. So
just have like 30% of them go play in traffic and call it a game.
no.
That was an option,
Andy,
baby.
Come on, dude.
We'd be playing Munchkin be that much different.
No, that's what I like told a class once when they were like going on Christmas break. I'm like, remember, kids, on break, only you can prevent overpopulation. Sled in traffic.
Andy, it's a good thing you didn't put that in like writing, like in Twitter or something, because I'm pretty sure that I've seen like discussions about how educators have lost their license when they suggested that students should do such a thing.
Oh, I'm sure there's enough parents with like large metal rods inserted up there. Yeah. Anyway,
it's probably a great way to respond to that.
How about that was a nice segue to our episode.
Yeah, double down, Andy.
Actually, was an issue. Was whatever. They're like, I don't agree with your policy. I'm like, I don't care. It's my policy.
All right.
Then she was like, well, we're going to have a meeting with the principal and superintendent and you tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, you can have a meeting if you want, but I'm not coming because I already told you the policy.
Fantastic. All right, Andy.
Then I hung up on him.
Hey, Murr's counting down for us.
Yay! 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, a podcast about board games. I am the host of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, Joe Sallin, joined tonight by Andy Dennison, who's reminiscing on the old times he used to get to be a dictator. Unfortunately, now he has to actually work with people and not just shout at them because he doesn't teach anymore. Andy, how are you doing?
Oh, it's fine. I still have kids. I can be a dictator.
Well, not to all of them, though. That's the problem, Andy. You can't just order them all around anymore.
Oh, no. I actually did that. Like, I volunteered at my kids' elementary class. And the teacher knew I'd been an educator, so she gave me, the kids who need a little bit more of a firm hand or kind of thing. And I had one that kept wanting to run off the woods and not stay with me. So I was like, look, you either stay with me or you're holding my hand the rest of the day in front of your classmates. And he looked back at me like, oh my God, is he really serious? And I gave him the teacher look, and he's like, oh crap, he's serious. And he came back over to where I was.
Nice, Andy. You are just tailor-made for those middle schoolers, man.
Oh,
you are just exactly what they need. Because if I were to say that, the kid would look at me and be like, I know you weren't really going to do that, but I kind of want to do what you're telling me not to do just to make you deliver.
Oh, no, it wasn't a idle threat. I literally would have done it.
Well, that's Andy Dennison, everybody. Also joining me from the West Coast, TC Reed. How you doing, TC?
Great to be here, gentlemen. It makes me really glad I don't work with the public at my job. Hi!
Oh, dude, was making it sound like all salty and stustuff. This is Andy who's saying these things.
I know.
I just like to point it out. It's not me. He's not teaching anymore.
It's just a nice reassurance. I had a pretty rough day at work, but it's just nice to know that I don't deal with the public. I just deal with butthead doctors.
All right, butthead doctors. I hope they get to work on me someday, TC.
Oh, yes. I got some recommendations for you.
All right, this is like a plastic surgeon, just the... Anyway. All right, well, that's the TC Reed and also Trent Ham.
Hi.
Joining me. Trent.
Silent but deadly
Trent.
Over there.
Good to hear from you. Do you have... What are you going to say?
With editors.
What kindling are you going to set flame to now?
Oh, that'll probably be during the main topic.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, fantastic. We will get there. Our main topic, by the way, tonight is games that we played and disliked, then later on played and found them to be much better than we originally thought. So games we misjudged will be what we talk about tonight. We have some lists coming your way. And before that, we'll review games. After that, we will hype games. And thanks to our sponsor, Game Surplus, bringing the world of board games to you at GameSurplus.com. Check them out. Also, use the coupon code. Use that. It's there for a reason, everybody. Good Board Ugly picks. And if you really enjoy some of the games that you see on that and use your coupon, say something about it in the comments. Good Board Ugly sent you to GameSurplus.com. All right, so before we get started with the episode, I did want to give a quick thank you shout out to the individuals from this community that donated to get a set of Braille dice for a student that was super, super gracious today when he was able to hold them for the first time. It was very inspiring. There are, like, we now have enough dice because we had a couple before, but now we have enough dice to, like, for him to play Can't Stop and read his own dice. He learned a little bit about that game to date, and we're planning to play it with him next time. Figured out that No Thanks is an excellent game to play with vision impaired individuals. It was just an amazing game, and I also just had extremely inspiring experiences today with young people that are taking leadership roles in the game group that I run at the local high school where I teach. So it was awesome. Carter, you did a great job. Carter's here in our chat. He did an awesome job getting a game running and accommodating this vision impaired individual by playing the game Spyfall as well helped. It just took a kind of all I did was just step in, read the card, take the student to the side, tell him what information he needed to know, and then let him go. And it was a really cool, like, sort of storytelling experience. I know that he really, really appreciated and enjoyed it. So it was a very inspiring event today. And thanks to the Good Board Ugly community for graciously donating the money to purchase those Braille dice. So that's my quick update about what's been going on, and thanks to this amazing community, you listeners. Keep your eye out, join the guild, and you'll probably have future requests for me because this is something where I believe it's doing the right thing, and I know that you guys are really good people and you want to see that happen. So anyway, moving along now into our reviews. Let's get it kicked off with the recurring installment of Andy and Trent. I guess we got a lot of recurring installments in finals and beginnings and first impressions. Today's going to be the episode of series, like serial reviews.
That's because we were all so busy the last 2 weeks.
Well, you're getting a chance to continually revisit this game, Andy. This is your review, and I mean, you and Trent are getting a chance to revisit this war game from Academy Games.
Yeah. So, did I talk about Firefight 3 No, I think I hyped it. So we were playing Conflict of Heroes Guadalcanal as we continue to work our way through the Firefight missions on that. We played Scenario or Firefight 3 actually twice because the first time I screwed up the rules bad. So then I read through it. I'm like, oh, that's what this is supposed to be like. And in Firefight 3, it's pretty crazy brutal. There's a lot more things that come out onto the map and whatnot. The US player gets a lot of toys to play with in this scenario. So he gets like artillery bombardment, like airplane attacks, like all these little defensive things. And then the Japanese that I was playing just have to like charge, kind of. So it was kind of crazy, but basically Trent had this defensive line build up, and then I had to charge this line. And in the way the game works, it encourages the Japanese to play tactically subpar. So I finally tried to really just embrace that mentality of how that army worked this time. So instead of really trying to be conservative and hold back and protect my troops, I just like ran them at Trent's machine guns. And the idea was if I could get enough running at him, he couldn't kill them quickly enough, and I could maybe get into like close combat range, and that would do better for me. And I kind of
set up a meat grinder.
That's kind of historically how it all worked, really. So, but that's the cool part of their Bushido point system, is it encourages you to play historically like the Japanese, because most of the time when you look at what gives you positive Bushido points, you're like, that seems like a really bad idea. So,
let's do it.
What's that?
That sounds a bad idea. Let's do it.
That's basically it. So, like in this scenario, for example, I would get positive Bushido if I cross the river, which is like hard to do, and you're going to get shot at the whole time. And I would get furthermore negative Bushido points if I activated any unit on their own. So in this scenario, I had a lot more units than Trent did, but you couldn't fully tell that in a way because I had to activate them in groups or I would actually lose points doing it. So it was really crazy, but yeah, there were a lot of toys to play with, a lot more interesting things. There was like mortars firing. I did manage a win on it, but like I think it was a really good game because I think Trent and I, over these 6 rounds we played of it, we both at some point were like, yeah, we're doing good. This is mine. And then at some point, like, roll the dice. God, why can't it be more than 9 for crying out loud? You know, like we were both equally frustrated at one point and like equally thought we were screwed at one point and then equally thought we had it at one point.
At one point, I needed a 4 or better on 2d6 and I rolled a 3.
That's awful.
2d6.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yep. No, it was rough. But I think that's maybe the sign of a good war game, you know, because there's a lot of positioning, and then there is a little bit up to the roll of the dice at that point. But your positioning is what matters. But I think it's a good sign that we equally both at some point felt awesome, like it was totally our game to have, and then like looking at it and going, oh my God, how do I save myself from this awful, awful mess? Or I don't know, but it was really neat. So that was Firefight 3. It was it was a crazed meat grinder. There were just lots of troops coming around, lots of reinforcements to put out. The only thing that was kind of sad is I did win it, I think, 1 round before their last round. And so Trent got a couple tanks, but I managed to win it before those really got up in my face and did anything too horrible to me. Because when that round hit, I was looking at all my troops, and literally, unless I ran my people at his tank and got into close combat with the tank, I had no chance of hurting them. So I basically just went order fire and hit anything I could to like straight points away. I managed to set up the situation in a way that kicked me win. If you can get to something like 9 victory points on a side, you automatically win scenario. But I just pulled out all the stops because I was deathly afraid of those tanks getting anywhere near my people. But it was a really good scenario. I think I played the Japanese army kind of more how you're supposed to this time, so that kind of crystallized some things in my mind of what I might do in the future. And I'm looking forward to playing this a little bit more. So that's Conflict of Heroes, Guadalcanal. Stay tuned for Firefight 4 in a couple weeks here.
Very cool. Trent, anything to add?
I want to play through more of it before I comment on the system in general.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, Trent, why don't you take over then and tell us about the next installment in your reviews of the gift series, which I don't even want to say which one because it sounds like there's options.
I'm not sure what you mean by that, but okay. I'm going to talk about YINSH.
It is going to be YINSH because you were like, definitely one of the gift games, but definitely not LYNGK.
No, it's not going to be LYNGK. It's going to be YINSH. I wasn't sure if I had written down something odd because we played a number of them lately, but I'm going to talk about YINSH. YINSH is, like I said, over these 7 weeks, starting last week, I'm going to try to cover all 7 gift games that are reasonably available to normal mortals. And
is that why LYNGK is not?
Huh?
Is that LYNGK is like not available?
No, LYNGK is. It's like other ones that aren't. There's like there's some other weirdness in the back. Just let's say there's 7 that are easily available. And so I'm going to talk about number 2, which is YINSH. YINSH, if you've ever played Othello, will feel a little familiar. If you've ever played Othello, which is the game where you're putting discs on the board and flipping all the other discs. Because that's kind of the main mechanism of this, but this does it a lot cleaner, and I like this a lot better. In this, basically, you're playing it on a board that's basically a bunch of triangles. That's a common thing for the GIPF series, is that the board is made up of little triangles, and they're equilateral triangles, so they are all like tightly packed on there. So when you put a piece down on an intersection, it's actually touching 6 different triangles, if you get the idea in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all equal-sided triangles. And the board of this one's roughly a circle, more or less, of these triangles. Or a hex or whatever. It's it's not a perfect shape, but you get the idea. It's a bunch of these triangles mashed together. And in this game, you start off and all you're doing is you have 5 rings of your color. And so you alternate by starting the game by putting the 5 rings on the board wherever you want. I put one on, my opponent puts one on. Straightforward. Then you basically take a series movement on your turn. A movement consists of, you have a ring on your board, you take one of the discs that's in the game, and put inside of the ring your color face up. This is just like Othello, where they have a black side and a white side. Mm-hmm. So if I'm the white player, I take one of those discs, and I put it white side up inside of my ring. And then I move it in a straight line, any one of the 6 straight lines that I can around that ring that I've chosen. I pick up the ring, leaving the piece that I just placed on the board, and then I move as far as I want in any of those 6 directions that I can along a straight line. I have to stop. I can stop whenever I want on an empty spot. If I pass over other pieces that are already on the board, not rings, but the pieces, I have to stop at the very next open space after that. And if I do that, I have to flip all the pieces that I passed over. You cannot jump over a ring. If your move would require you to jump over a ring, you can't do it. You can just like move a space if you want, and that's it. Or you can move 2 spaces if they're both open, and that's it. You kind of have some freedom along each of the lines. Obviously, you can't go off the edge of the board or anything obvious like that. So the goal of the game is to get 5 of the same color in a row, however you can do it. And sometimes you get that by literally you complete a 5 in a row by the disc you put at the start of your turn. Often you get it by flipping a bunch as you're moving the ring over some pieces, and they all flip. That will complete it. It kind of depends on what happens. On occasion, you'll complete multiple lines at once. You'll complete one for you or one for the other player. That's happened a few times. But here's the interesting part. This is the interesting part. When you've completed those 5 in a row, you take the 5 pieces off the board, and then you have to remove one of your own rings. Okay? So then you go down to 4 rings, and so it reduces the number of movements you can make. And then after you get your second 5 in a row, you remove another ring. And after you get your third 5 in a row, you move your third ring, and the first player to remove 3 rings is the winner. Yep. And that's again the entirety of the game. It's an abstract. It's a simple rules abstract. This one, compared to Devon, which I talked about last week, is quite a bit thinkier. It's definitely heavier. I would put it in the middle of the pack in terms of heaviness, where I would say that the game I talked about last week, Devon, was probably the lightest gift game. I don't really know. I have to think about that. But this one's definitely middle of the pack. This is one where you're rewarded by... This is one that definitely rewards observation above everything else. Like observing the board state and then thinking through what can be flipped and what can't reasonably be flipped. Because usually what this game comes down to is who's the person that sees a way to do a permutation of flips that gets them their line. And if you can't, and then you have to think ahead to the next step, what's going to flip on their turn. And it becomes very much like a pattern matching. This is going to sound strange. One of my sons described it as if he feels like a 3D game. And I understand what he means by that, because if you played Othello, which is a much more common thing where the discs flip, you can kind of get a sense of that, where you have to be thinking the entire board is going to change on your turn. There's going to be a lot of discs that's flipped, especially if you get into the late game of this. And that you just have to, it's a lot of like observational skills. I think that it's less so, I think games with a less dynamic board and like Go, where you're essentially only really moving one piece and possibly removing another piece, you can think ahead a sequence of moves. This game doesn't allow for that. The board's too complicated. The board changes up too much. It's mostly like tactical. You have to really look at the board and observe what the game state is and think ahead maybe 1 or 2 turns Because after that, the board state changes so much that you can't really follow it. So if that's more of your flavor of abstract, this is a pretty good one.
I think what you mean, Trent, is that those permutations get so complicated that even though, yes, it is like there's no randomness, it's just too much to put in your head at the same time. Is that what you mean?
Well,
like with the amount of change?
It's more that one single move you can take changes the board state substantially, because you're usually, especially in the late game, you're flipping several discs. Yeah. You have the possibility, if you have 4 or 5 rings on the board, of making like 40 or 50 different possible moves, and each one of those is going to substantially change the board. It's going to flip a lot of discs. Then your opponent has the same ability, 30, 40, 50 possible moves, many of which can change a lot of the discs. Yeah. And it quickly just the possibilities get so big so fast that you can't follow them. With the last game we talked about, Devon, that was not the case. It was really easy to continually see the board state and think ahead. This one's got a lot bigger game space. And it's one of those, I don't think most reasonable people can keep it in their head. I mean, there's probably people out there that can, but it's way past me beyond about a turn or two. So I play it very tactically. It's kind of how I have to play it. And tactical abstracts reward observation more than anything else. They're really like, you study the game state and you think about what's the best possible move. And it's usually looking for a pattern of some kind. And that's really what this one falls into. I would say for my personal ranking, this is probably middle of the pack or maybe towards the lower end of the GIPF series. I like it better than Othello, which is definitely the one, if people are familiar with an abstract that's like this, Othello is definitely the one I point at. And I'd way rather play this than Othello.
Sure.
If I had Othello in my collection, this would replace it. Nice. But it's still, I have a high opinion of the GIPF series, and this is not my number one in the series. But if you like Othello and you want a better Othello, this is the one you should play. Because that's what, in my opinion, that's what this is. And that is YINSH. YINSH.
Very cool. Yeah, I agree with the comparison to Othello. It's like Othello, if Othello started at easy difficulty, and the more you win, the harder it gets for you.
Yes. I would agree with that. The first ring is usually the easiest in this.
It's tough to do because you just have less options.
Well, the funny thing is, you have less options, but then there's usually more and more pieces on the board, too. It gets really strange. The type of complexity changes throughout the game because you have fewer pieces that you can actually move, but there's usually more options with each piece. So it's strange. I will say I will admit I've lost to my 8-year-old at this game today. So
nice.
Yeah. My family likes to play abstracts though, so that's not surprising. We're kind of all going through the GIPF games together again, so it's been fun. And I will say that we're not really playing them in the order I'm intending to review them. I'm trying to figure out which one do I review this week, and I decided that this is the one to review this week. I will say this much. I think our family definitely has a favorite.
Okay. I guess we'll hear about it.
I was about to say, is there one in particular that your family gravitates towards?
Yes, and I haven't reviewed it yet, and I'll save it for later.
Nice.
Okay. I will say my oldest kid really likes Devon because he thrashes everybody at it. I don't know what it is, but he gets Devon. That was the one I reviewed last week. But I think there's one that in general liked better.
Okay.
I think he just likes it because he can beat people.
But that goes a long way.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know what the deal is. He just like beats everybody at it lately. I don't know. He's figured something out that we haven't. I don't know what it is, but it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it sounds like Kate in the Munchkin collectible card game. She has a build of a warrior that I cannot wrap my head around. She just thrashes me at it every time it comes out, and I have tried everything, and I'm still up against the wall, which is kind of cool in a way.
Yes, the GIPF series has now been compared to Munchkin. I think.
Well, only I could go there. I'm sorry, only I could go there. I did not mean to insult your game. I'm sorry.
No, I just think it's funny. That's not a comparison I think I would never heard ever. So.
That's why you guys invited me on.
Yeah. Well, actually, TC, we did invite you on to review games, so maybe you could tell us a little bit about how the Fallout board game, which I'm pretty sure you got at Goodwill, is going.
No, I got it from a friend who bought it. No, I was struggling because we talked about before, and I really wanted to give this a review, and I've played it subsequently 3 times, but I can't quite. I was having trouble, like, how could I review this to you guys or to the people in general? Because, you know, it's not, I can say 100% for certain that your investment in this game is going to hinge on the license. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Either you're not going to like the game because of the mechanics. You're going to play the game because it's Fallout, right? It's too strongly tied to its license to be anything but that. And I am a huge Fallout fan, so it is a biased opinion you are hearing right now. But I figured the easiest way to review this would be, as I put it in the notes, to tell you Tales from the Capital Wasteland. And I think this will encapsulate everything about the game and really inform you whether it's a game you want to put yourself through. So one of the last games I played, and it won't be the last game, but one of the previous games I played The Wastelander. And of course, I'm going through we did the scenario. Comes with 4 scenarios. This was a Capital Wasteland, which is very strongly based on Fallout 3, which has a megaton and the tower, and a lot of the events are straight from the Fallout 3 video game. So I'm wandering around the wasteland, and a skill test comes up, and I really want to succeed at this skill test. And I notice in my pocket I picked up Mentats. Like, okay, well, I don't know what these do, but it says I get an automatic success. I'm going to tap it, roll it, and see if I succeed. Well, I tap it. I get I guess I can't say tap. I exhaust it, I guess would be, so I don't get sued by Wizards of the Coast. I exhaust it, and I roll, and of course, it's dice, and I fail. And on this little bitty text, it says, if you fail, you have to make an endurance roll to see if you're addicted. Oh, maybe I should have read this further. I roll, and of course, naturally, I fail that. And now I'm a Wastelander addicted to Mentats, which basically means I can never get rid of this item because I'm addicted to it. I have 3 slots. I have now permanently taken up one of my slots with Mentats. Crap. Okay, well, there goes my guns. There goes the armor I want, and I am just hosed. Well, I go to Vault, I think it was like 109, and I'm talking to some people there, and randomly this lab coat comes out. And I'm like, cool, I don't know what this does, but there's no way I am not getting a lab coat in this game because lab coats are cool. It's what I wear at work, right? So I get a lab coat. I don't know what it does, but cool, lab coat just came up randomly, no problem. Well, it turns out, if I would have read it further, that the lab coat lets you hold any amount of drug items you want, and it does not count to your item limit. I'm like, sweet. So I go out and I buy Jet. I buy more Mentats. I am like a junkie Wastelander with all these insane successes because my lab coat is just decked full of drugs I could just use at will, right? And I end up winning the game because of that. Now, is that a balanced game? No. Is it thematically consistent with Fallout 3? Yes, because in Fallout 3, I definitely remember nuking Megaton and getting all this bad karma, and I got rid of all of it by giving water to a homeless guy in front of an aircraft carrier. Right? So thematically, it works. It's a fun game, but it all hinges on if you like the Fallout, if you like the license. Because if you don't, you are not going to like this game one bit. Not at all. It's I mean, the way it works is, I mean, you can win on crazy card draws. You can get crazy things going, but it's all consistent with the license. And they really, really captured that video game in a board game format. So that's my review. You're either going to like it because of the license, or you're going to play it and going, what is this piece of junk? I don't even know what Fallout is. Why am I even wasting my time with this thing? So there you go. That is the best I can tell you about Fallout, and that's going to be my final review on it.
Well, now you know, and if you didn't before, that Fallout 3, or the Fallout the board game, is mainly for fans of Fallout.
I would also like to give a little side story concerning the little post I put out trying to get guild members on Warframe. This is an incredibly cool story. I have to tell this. I did get one person, one guildie to join me. Name is Mike. Mike's listening to this. Thank you. We've been having a blast. He goes by Luxbane, which is like one of the coolest freaking Xbox Live games names I've ever heard. It's great. So we're playing, and we're helping my son with his dojo and all that. I tell him on Tuesdays they do a live stream, and so you watch the Twitch, you register it, you link it to your Xbox One account. And sometimes they do giveaways, but don't count on it. Well, he watched this stream on Tuesday. One of the pools to win and got like at least $200 worth of in-game items right there.
Nice.
So it's incredible. I was like, wow. So good things happen when you play Warframe with me, guys. So if anybody's interested, it's a sad dead thread in our guild. I'll try to bring it up. No one's actually responded on the guild, but people have had at least one person contact me personally. If you want in and you want a really good chance of winning free stuff for it on a free game, man, let me know. We'll have a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So, anyway, I think TC, that was a nice thing to do on the guild, and I'm glad to hear that it's working out for you nice on Xbox Live. Yep. So, unfortunately, I do not have an Xbox hooked up to the internet anymore with Xbox Live. Boo.
Oh, well, it is what it is. If anybody's out there wants to join us for some goofy fun, feel free.
That sounds cool. It sounds like you had a good time, and you were on your Xbox Live account recently with your son, and that's kind of part of what is going to lead us into our topic here.
Yeah,
but
I wanted a whole story on that, but let me know we can get to that.
I just wanted to quickly get my review in because I was saving my review to this moment because I'm wondering if it doesn't kind of go along with what the whole idea of what we're doing in this topic is. I'm giving you, after one game of Founders of Gloomhaven, what's like going on in my head. And I hope that this tells you that this is probably going to be one of those games where I don't want to say that I misjudged it, but the first experience I had with the game was a very like tumultuous and like just trying to learn what things were. It was a very, difficult experience because I what I didn't realize is I was trying to just kind of play with the systems in the game, Founders of Gloomhaven. Which, by the way, Founders of Gloomhaven is literally nothing like Gloomhaven. If you do not like Gloomhaven, you should probably play Founders of Gloomhaven. Because I feel like if you don't like Gloomhaven, probably what you're looking for in the hobby is in Founders of Gloomhaven. And maybe kind of vice versa. But I think I'm one of those that could be in both audiences for sure. I know that I'm in Gloomhaven's audience, and I'm fairly certain that Founders as well. But my first game was... in a 4-player game, I was the one player who had never played before, and everybody else kind of knew what was going on. And I ended up getting into a few industries, and then having those industries essentially having people kind of buy themselves into the same industry I was in, and they having had a previously better connected, more diversified network, were able to then utilize the things that I had tried to specialize in towards building out the board, while I focused on hiring advisors to add to my cards that I could play, because you have these cards that are essentially like, allowing you to take an action for the round. And I thought, like these cards, like you'll want to get several of these, and I guess I didn't think that, in the game, the cards that you get are very much similar to the actions that are already out on the board. They're just slightly better and give you a little bit of a benefit. But really, like when it comes down to it, you're going to want to choose like, things that are going to help you to build out on the actual map of the city of Gloomhaven. The way that you actually build in this game, to me, is extremely interesting because you need to have access to certain base materials before you can really build like the things that give you points and that generate you, like the mid-level things generate you points as the game goes on, because every time somebody continues to build off of your mid-level thing, it's kind of like as if in the game The Great Zimbabwe, if you got paid every time somebody used one of your craftsmen, and if you got paid in like victory points as opposed to getting paid in money, which I know is kind of like separating the two systems that work so well in Great Zimbabwe. But here in Founders of Gloomhaven, it just creates a really different environment. And my first game was very frustrating for me, but I kept most of this inside because I'm used to this now. And that's why I'd say I'm approaching this topic from a perspective of like, when I am learning a game, learning is in and of itself sometimes a struggle, especially when you are expected to continually perform while you're still in the process of learning. Anybody who's done a new job for the first time, or just, anybody who's played a new board game to themselves understands that like, when things happen, players at the table are probably going to be playing to win. And if that means that you're like essentially the the pie that's getting divided up into slices for the other players to consume, that, you know, you can end up sort of like not in the most ideal situation. Now, looking back on the game, I think that the outcome of the game and the winner, who happened to be Trent. Hey, Trent.
Hey, I have comments when you're done.
The winner was Trent. Trent had won the game by essentially the difference in points between him and the other players. Of course, not me. I was like out of the runnings. But the other players and Trent were differenced by the fact that all the other players had just built up their entire network around the use of a single resource, of which there was only one, and Trent was the only one that had it. And it was just kind of like a lot of this was I felt like sort of things that people did. I felt like there was a lot of things that people did to try to cut out other people, and there was quite a bit of like, you know, jumping in front of. And I don't think that they were always doing the ideal move to the person who was getting the most benefit at that point in time. I think they were maybe trying to go more for, you know, like getting what they thought would be the most beneficial to them, and that ultimately had some weird side effect of also benefiting another player who they didn't really care that much about, but they were getting something really good too. But if you get something kind of good from everybody, even though they're getting something really good for themselves, then it comes your turn. You get something really good for yourself. Now you're just, you know, swimming in it. And ultimately, Andy, close your ears. Founders of Gloomhaven felt like an 18xx game to me in many ways, because you start the game with a certain like company, industry, whatever it is that you're trading to other players, and everybody else can only get it from you by like buying into and being underneath you and having access to the resource, but you're the one who's getting like the real benefit from it. I feel like the way that the game evolves using these like really specific and kind of constrained tech tree is like kind of something that becomes after game 1 or 2 a second nature, because you just know which resources turn into other resources. But overall, like, I felt like this was very much about cutting into another person's market and then trying to take it and beat them out towards getting the buildings built and being the person who hooks up. It almost feels like a pickup and delivery game. But it's like, and that might be one of the reasons I say it's like an 18xx game, because it doesn't have stock, but it does have like sort of this continually residual point trickling down system. And that to me feels very much about getting in the right place at the right time and doing the right deliveries more than anything else. And there was a few things that I made that were just straight up noob mistakes that led to me being frustratingly constrained and just wanting to get the game over so I could, you know, process it and try to approach it from a better perspective, from a better vantage point. But that's why my first game of Founders of Gloomhaven was difficult, and I hope that sends a message to the audience that this game is for. This is a heavy gamers game. From what I saw, this is not your Gloomhaven audience. This is for heavy gamers. Please, heavy gamers, understand that this is the experience that I expect from a heavy game. I expect to be initially frustrated. I expect to have a lot of broken dreams that were mostly shattered by other players. You know, just continual bludgeoning.
You need a hug.
These are good things. These are good things. This is promise. This is hope. This is exactly what I wanted from the game. But right now, screw you guys. That was not nice. It was just not a call for. Trent, what do you have to say?
You shouldn't have taken the green cards.
This game is a pleasant surprise for me. It feels like a splatter to me. I would not say that it feels like an 18xx game. I would say it feels more like a splatter game to me.
Maybe like more this like Indonesia, kind of. Like I don't know. Just it does feel so splattery.
Yeah, it feels like a mix of Indonesia and Great Zimbabwe to me. Is what it feels like. And it feels like it would fit right into their catalog with a slight bit of different theming, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean, you can just buy right into somebody's industry. In Indonesia, you just buy right into the industry. And that's why it kind of feels a little bit like that, because you just buy a Sempit, Faji, whatever it is, and then, the other person's just screwed. And that's the way that I felt.
Yeah, I really enjoy the game. There are elements that you pick up on in your first game or two that once you start taking them for granted, the play level gets higher. And I think there's continually things that you're unlocking in it. Like you mentioned, it was probably my 5th game of it, 5th or 6th that I was playing with you. And this is the first time I began to realize how powerful it was to sway the influence auctions. When you're actually picking what buildings are on the board, that's how I won, is doing those. I really banked those auctions hard. I was taking...
That's why you kept getting the residual points, because you were picking the buildings that were going to get you the points.
Yes, Joe. Yes, that's what I was doing.
That makes sense, yeah.
Everything I was building was stuff that was linked back to knowledge. I was always bidding on the one that linked back to knowledge. And ideally, I was bidding on the one that I knew I was going to be able to build a level 3 building for. If I saw ones that had a bunch of stuff that linked back to knowledge, and also one that I owned the level 3 building for, and I saw that up on the market, I was grabbing temporary influence all the time to go bid for it. That's what
really
I was doing.
Because it's like, Isaac gives to a certain extent the players a collective hand on the wheel of this game, and you got to wrench it as hard in your direction so that it'll go to the place where you're going to be the one getting the residual points. That's such a fascinating system, and really like this, the noob mistakes you're talking about is just figuring out what each system in the game is kind of built for. The advisor deck is meant to be an auxiliary action, not a main action. The board is where the game happens. And it's really fascinating, Trent, to hear, like, those are the things that you did, because I was really trying to pick buildings based on, like, the worker placement action they got, and I was going to try to, like, work on the worker placement aspect, but I really think that worker placement aspect is secondary. It's a more secondary system that you're only going to really go for if it makes sense and if it's benefiting you in some other way.
It's definitely a MacGuffin. It's definitely a thing that is there to be useful in the moment, but I don't know that you plan around it.
Yeah.
The worker placement on your own faction. That's how I felt about it every game. I think that there's a couple factions that you could get an engine going based on that, but it's not something I've ever geared towards. What I've enjoyed at this is I feel like every time I play it, I'm unwrapping something new with it. And I've really enjoyed that. Like I said, when I played with you, I was sat there studying each auction for a while. I was like, which one is going to get me the most trickle-down points no matter what happens? That's the one I'm bidding on. And I did that literally every round. That was what I was bidding on. And I was on the winning side on quite a few of those auctions. And a lot of them I ended up placing myself. So
I took a strategy.
I am a big fan of this game. I think it's... Get this. I think it's Isaac's best game.
No, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, I definitely think that this is the game that he's made that is the most for heavy gamers. I think that Forge War was a game that he made for individuals that, like, could be at entry level or could be all the way in, but somebody who wants something really big and huge. And that's kind of what Gloomhaven was. But this one right here, Founders of Gloomhaven, is unique of the other products he's made because it doesn't have that just everything in the kitchen sink thrown in feeling to it. It feels like there's a focused, ideal way to play this game, but it really, because of the system of collective decision making that with the point buildings that come out, it's something entirely unique and that feels more kind of like you mentioned. I think Lancaster has been brought up because it's like actually voting in a Euro, but to me it was very interesting to see this game in play, and I look forward to my continuing plays of it, but it's not, It's too early for me to call it because I still have this sort of like, feeling, like that sort of sour taste in your mouth. But anyway, I think overall, Founders of Gloomhaven, one that I'm very excited to keep trying, and one that, quote unquote, misjudging. I hopefully have come a little ways from misjudging things to where, like, I'm starting now to understand more that, like, when I misjudge a game, or a lot of times when I play a game for the first time, my stress is due to the fact that learning a game is requiring a lot from me and requiring me to try to play competitively at the same time and perform, and it's just very difficult. So I came up with a few games to be able to talk about for this, but really, TC, you are the person who, for our topic tonight...
Yeah, it's been a really... First of all, I'd like to address Gloomhaven, and Gloomhaven, I just want to get on this bandwagon a little bit. It has been a very pleasant surprise for my game group as well. And it was one of those games where I was, we got it.
Founders or Gloomhaven?
Founders of Gloomhaven.
Okay, so Founders.
Founders, yeah. Sorry if I wasn't more specific. Yeah, it was just one of those games where it wasn't what we thought it was. Chris, my wife, had the look of, I don't want to learn anything new. I was 90% sure going into it after that first impression that this was just going to be a train wreck because people weren't invested in it. And by the time that game ended, we were enraptured with this game and wanted to play it again. And I was very, very pleasantly surprised by that. And I just want to reiterate everything you guys said, that it's a heavy game, don't let that get you off, because there's a good game in there, and there's quite a bit to chew on in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But anyway, to my topic, so I've been thinking about. I think this really hit on my what I call my Destiny 2 disaster, where I was like, oh hey, let's all play Destiny 2, and then I played. I'm like, what is this? I just paid $10 for this, and people paid $60. What is going on? And then I went and I said, okay, something wacky's going on here. Then I went and I picked up a $3 used copy of the original. And at that point, I realized, oh my God, this is all reused assets in the sequel. There's nothing new in the sequel. I mean, sequels are supposed to be better. I just, if I had a microphone, I would just ranted for like 30 minutes on this thing. I was so disappointed. But I figured, maybe I'm not quite approaching this like I should. So I drug out my PlayStation 3s. I had 2 of them. I bought it used for $3, got 2 monitors, 2 TVs and 2 monitors, and me and my son played it the whole weekend. And through the eyes of an 8-year-old and playing it cooperatively, it's okay. I was like, maybe I misjudged this. I don't know. And it made me think a little bit about the games I play and the people I play with, and how I really should play a game 3 times before I just lash out at it or try it from a different perspective with different people. And it also hit there have been games I have played where I played it once and oh my Lord, this thing is garbage. How can anyone play this? This is unbalanced. And that can be due to a variety of reasons. Like Joe said, you're so invested in teaching it, you can't get a strategy out. That's my brass issue. I'm so busy trying to get people to play it correctly that I don't even know what I'm doing on the board 3 moves into it. Or it could be just a bad play group. It could be a lot of reasons where you're not playing the game in the right setting with the right people or the way it's supposed to be played. And when you go back and visit it again, you're like a light bulb goes off or something. And I have quite a few games where if I had not stuck with it, I would have thrown it on my grill and lit the thing on fire and said, done. I am done with this thing. So I thought it'd be an interesting conversation to bring up. And I have a small list. I tried to limit it to 2 to 3 because last time I went to 5, we all went to 5 and we were here for 3 hours. It was a really awesome episode, by the way. But, and that was really fascinating. I liked that conversation. But I just thought maybe we could go across games we played the first time and we just loathed it. But the more we played it, the more we liked it. And it actually ended up a game we ended up keeping. Now, that might be I don't know you guys personally on that. I don't know if you ever had that experience, but I just thought it'd be an interesting conversation to have. And it's just something I've been thinking about this week.
Very cool. I like the idea of it, TC. It is definitely one where there's certainly games that I have written off or I have misjudged and just felt like I had an idea for them. And a lot of times, originally, the Longview podcast, which, I sound like I'm plugging my own stuff now, but I wasn't originally the Longview podcast host. At one time, I was just a guest host, and a lot of times I would listen to Longview episodes, and they would show me what I was missing about a gaming experience. So I would say that there are definitely examples where just listening to people who really love a game talk about what they love about the game helps me to know what I'm looking for when I go into it. So let's go ahead and get kicked off then with our lists. I went chronologically. So should I start in the most recent or in the most distant past? What do you guys think?
The most emotionally devastating.
Emotionally devastating. Wow, man.
This is when Joe played Heartthrob.
Yeah, the first time you played it, you were just like, I hate this guy.
And then he kind of came around to Steve.
Well, let's put it like this. The one that was the most devastating for me, probably socially with the rest of the group and this podcast, was Argent.
Argent the Consortium.
Yeah, Argent would be an example of one that, it's one of those where I respect that there's so many cool things going on there, but there are some tickets. There are some things about it that I don't feel that I am fair. Not even now. I still don't feel like I'm exactly fair towards the game. because there's something about that game that feels like I'm sitting in the impersonal feeling I get sitting in the menu of the like Devil May Cry series on the video games. Like I just feel this weird like I'm in like a gothic, but then all the text is very much just like, you know, designer, like generic designer slipstream text, and I'm like, what is this? Like, I feel like this is a place that can't exist. It's like trying to be old timey and new at the same time, and it just is like clashing. And I feel like I'm in a place that just is not existent. So Argent's art style is just one that I just cannot get behind with its anime, and I don't know. It's like a me thing for sure. And the gameplay was so interactive and so frustrating and abrasive to me in my first game. I do not feel like I gave it a good first game, and I probably, because of that, pushed that game further back than it should have been, and it should have been closer to the front of our game group's repeating circle. So there's my first one.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm going to save my favorite one for last.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah, I only have 3, I should point out.
Right.
The first one I'm going to name, since TC already mentioned it, was Brass. The first time I played Brass, I was thoroughly not impressed with Brass. I was like, this game, I don't know. I'm not really feeling this at all. Like, I'm just putting tokens on a map, and I don't really feel like there's any rhyme or reason to why I'm putting tokens on a map. But then, like, I played it again, and it was starting to get a glimmer, and I played it again. It was on that third play that it really clicked for me. And then I was like, I need to get this game. This game's fantastic. I need to get this game. That was literally during the Roxley Kickstarter.
Wow.
So, very convenient. And now I have nice, pretty versions of Brass.
Very wallet devastating, I'm sure.
Yeah. I said, I want to give Brass a real try while this is on Kickstarter, and that was my third play, and I was like, boom. It clicked. Whatever it was about it clicked. And like, this is a game now I have it. I keep wanting to put it on the table. I've got this new pretty version, and I really love the game, and I've completely 180'd on it. If I give it on the old 1 to 10 scale after my first play, it probably would have been about a 3. After my second play, it would have probably been about a 4 or a 5. After my third play, it would have been about an 8. Now I'd probably put it about a 9.
Wow. Yeah, you know, that game is for me as well. This is part of my list. Just because the first time I played it, I got smoked by people who knew that game well, and I couldn't wrap my head. I didn't understand that it wasn't about income. It was about getting things on the board for connections for points, and especially if you got ships out. So I wasn't really seeing the full game. And I can't wrap my head around I thought the loans didn't work well. And after I played, I'm like, this is a 1. This is like Martin Wallace's worst game I've ever played in my whole life. This is dumb. I'm like, these things are moving. It's fiddly. Why do I play cards for an action when it doesn't make? But once you wrap your head around it, and once you see what's going on, it's really good. But it took me more than 3 games, Trent. It was about my 6th game of that I finally like. Wow. This is good. And I think that was around the time I actually came close. I've never won a game of Brass. I'm going to be clear. I have never, ever run a game of Brass, but I've come close. And boy, that just felt good. You know, it's like, yes, I'm probably getting closer. But yeah, I think, and according to I'm reading the feedback here, I mean, I don't think it's an isolated incident. I think you have to grow to like Brass.
It definitely is one where the interlocking systems are best appreciated by somebody who understands the basic systems and isn't worried about them. I just liked my first experience with Brass, but it was for a very different reason. It was like none of us knew the game, and I learned Martin Wallace rules before, and without anybody knowing the game, I knew what I was in for.
See, I think the first time I played it, I was like, it's all right. And then like the second or third time I played it, I was like, I like it. Yeah, you know. But I did fairly competitively, I think, the 2 or 3 times I played it. But yeah. Anyway, bring it Sunday.
Bring the pretty chips, the pretty poker chips. We'll play.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. That was. Now we're on to your list, by the way, Andy. If you've got anything.
Yep.
Okay,
I know. I hate them all. They're all bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Now the hard one for me was actually, for me, it was a little bit difficult because I don't know, like I tend to research a game so much up front that I'm not normally terribly surprised by it. There was one that came up first for me, and my first one I picked because not only did I grow to love the game, but I grew to love that style of gaming, and that is Through the Ages. Mm-hmm. The first time I really played a multiplayer game of that, like we were doing it online, and Trent did awful things to me. And after about the fourth awful thing, I nearly threw my computer across the room and screamed.
Remember, this whole time I'm sitting there trying to coach Andy to not be the pipsqueak that just keeps getting kicked in the stomach. This is what happened. And just so you know, Andy, I need to add Through the Ages to my list. I didn't put it on here because I had a similar experience to what you're describing, only that happened probably a year before what you're describing.
Yeah. But anyway, not only did I come around to Through the Ages, I came around to interactive gaming in general. Now I'm the one who, like, half the time is complaining about a game not having any interaction. I was like, there's not enough stabby in this game. There needs to be more stabby. If I can't influence your game state, what do I care? I should just play at home.
I need more stabby in my game.
You can blame me for what Andy turned into.
Yeah, it's
a monster.
The nice positive aspect is, was it the guy in our game group, Kevin, who was like, but it's hard to be mad at you because you're just so jovial about it. Like, and if someone stabs you that bad, you're still fairly jovial about it.
Yeah, I know. You expect it, Andy. It's not like you're a hypocrite about it. You don't take it seriously. It's all part of the game. No, it checks out. Wasn't always like that.
Yeah. But no, the first time that happened, yeah, I hated it because I was very much I like to build up my thing and don't kick over my sandcastle kind of gamer at that point.
Interesting. What is this Napoleon card that Trent drafted? What does it do?
Coming.
It was a fairly good shift after about a week of like thinking it over and thinking about the game. Yeah, like 2 weeks later, we got another guy in on the game, and I totally did the same thing to him.
And it felt good.
Before. Yeah. It's all over where it's at. Have you got a chance to play this one yet, TC? I know that you downloaded the app.
Yeah, I played it. I had to actually. I got it digitally, and I couldn't wrap my head around it, so I went to Game Night and actually had someone teach me the physical copy.
That's
I was like,
probably a good idea.
I think, okay, now I get it, and I went back and I enjoyed it. I played it like 2 or 3 times. So if it wasn't for the Lord of the Rings card game, I'd be playing it a lot more. I can tell you that.
Okay, cool. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and start off our lists again. Let's see. Who was the last one to go? Did I go first on this list? I think I did. I think it means I'm my turn.
Yeah, I was the last one, wasn't I?
Yeah. So for me, the next one up, because I'm going chronologically from the oldest to the newest, would be, I believe, because this is getting into the ancient past here, kind of. But the next one up for me is going to be Concordia. Concordia, my first game of it, I can remember just feeling like I hit a point where my brain just saw all of the possibilities and didn't want to choose the best. It just couldn't at that point. It was like there was just too much. Everything that happened in that game felt like it just continued to impact everything about the rest of the game and where the game state was at. And to me, it was absolutely mind-bending, but in a way that did make me want to play it again, even though I was just so like, what? Like, there's just so much thinking. And this shows you where I was at. Like, when Concordia first came out, I was like really new to the hobby, and it was a newer game for me. And, you know, it was something that really melted my mind. I certainly came around on it, and it is like one of my favorite games now. I know it's not been around for super long, but it just, you know, when I played it, I was still unaware of how much further I had to go to be really into the core of this gaming hobby.
You should have just gone for Mage Knight like I did. Everything seems easier after that.
Well, Mage Knight's Mage Knight is a game that I actually had sold or traded or something at
Oh,
one point.
that's right. That should be your list.
Yeah, I should have. Like, everything you guys are bringing up is like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I had the same experience. Like, I suck at this thing. Like, I do this all the time. So that was mine. And
is
now...
that according to the Matt Gertz game? I'm trying to look it up.
It's the one where he's no longer doing the rondelle.
Yeah,
it was a rondelle in card form. It was
that was a game that I played and like I was like, you know, I shouldn't like this, but I kind of do. It was, you know, because it's like a dry. It looked like it's like a dry Euro. It's got trading in the Mediterranean.
Oh,
it's
the
like
box art's awful.
It's the most trading in the Mediterranean game there is.
Yeah, it's like it just clicks off every like generic Euro stereotype you can think of. Right? It's like it just goes down that checklist. I'm like, there's no way. This is dumb. And I played it, I'm like, oh, I like this card play. And the rule book was like 4 pages. I'm like, and after playing GMT games, I'm like, oh, this is a blessing, man. I love this. And
I really turned the corner on it when I when I saw that the rules were 2 pages front and back. I just like felt like my jaw dropped to the floor, and I never quite picked it all the way up for the rest of the game because I sucked that time I played. But to me, it feels like a game that has so much going on, but so much of that is just from such a simple set of rules.
Yeah, that's exactly as a large reason why I still like Dominion. It's a simple rule set that lacks the complexity of gameplay, and it's good. And I wasn't expecting to like it, so that was fun.
For sure. How about Trent now? Trent, what's next up for you?
Okay, like I said, I have 3. The first one is Brass. The second one is Twilight Struggle.
Ooh.
The first time I played it, I felt like it was just people playing random cards.
Okay.
And people were just putting down cards, and sometimes they were broken, and sometimes they were useless, and a lot of times you just did stuff with the numbers on the cards, and then someone won. That kind of was my feeling of it after the first game.
Wow. Just wow. You're able to capture that feeling pretty well, considering you have changed your mind about this.
Yeah, I completely 180'd on it. And this is going to sound funny, but the reason I 180'd on it was 1960. It was a couple plays of 1960, which is honestly fairly similar in a lot of ways. There's a lot, really, it's got a lot of similarities to it. Whatever clicked about Twilight Struggle for me first clicked with 1960. So I played 1960
the Nixon election one.
Yeah, it's the 1960, The Making of the President, which is basically a Twilight Struggle light, is honestly what it is.
It's from the same designer.
I think, like, though, that for 1960, I really think the mechanism and theme click better for that. But I'm not saying I think, you know, better than Twilight Struggle, but I think the theme and the mechanisms mesh better there.
Yeah, well, whatever it was, the system, the card-driven system that the 2 games share clicked with me because of 1960, and then I went back and played Twilight Struggle, and I loved it. And now, like, it's easily my most used app on my iPad.
Oh yeah, that's a nice app that Playdeck did.
Yeah,
I can't wait for him to get coin games on that.
Oh
thing.
God, Andy, yes.
But anyway, like, I really appreciate that game now. I haven't had that many opportunities to play it face to face, but I'm still fairly often playing it on the iPad, and for a while it was pretty bad. It was pretty much an addiction. Yeah, so 180 switch on that. And I will say that if you had difficulty getting what's interesting about Twilight Struggle, you should give 1960 a try. That's what did the trick for me. It kind of made the system make sense for me, and now I appreciate it a ton.
Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, and you also have any experience with? Okay, well, I could just say my experience with Twilight Struggle. I hated that game. Because the first time I played it, I didn't realize if you lost Europe, you lost. And that happened to me. Like, fine, that's not going to happen. Then I realized if you declare a thermonuclear war by attacking an area that doesn't like that, you lose the game. I lost so many games of that in a row. I just wanted to burn.
Somebody let you do that, dude. If it was somebody who really was like a player of Twilight Struggle and not just somebody who's, you know, like, you should just not have taken the action that caused you to do that. You know, it's just.
Well, I also said, like, he said, you know, honestly, he was like, you want to take it back? Like, no, it was my mistake.
Okay. I was gonna say that's pretty standard to, like, you politely remind the person that, like, you're going to lose the game if you take this action.
Yeah, but it took me, but I liked the theme enough that I kept playing it, and I really liked it. But my next one, This is a game I absolutely hated with every fiber of my being the first time I played it. I mean, and this is the first game I can remember I rage purchased just because I wanted to figure out what the heck was going on with it. And that's Arkwright. The first time I played Arkwright, I got trashed. I was upset. I was pissed at the world. Everyone could die. I didn't know what happened. I don't know what went on. I didn't know there was 2 versions. I just got dumped into like the heaviest version with like a mini expansion, and I just got decimated. It wasn't even close. I was like, dude, you won this game by just picking some random stuff at the beginning that you knew how to do, and you just capitalized on it. I didn't know, and I got destroyed. I was like, dude, I'm gonna buy this game. I'm gonna play you again. And I did. And I even ran down that stupid expansion you can only get in that calendar, right? I like special ordered that calendar.
I have that too.
Yeah, I got that, and then I played it.
Does it the shape meeples now?
Yeah, and I even got the shape meeples from Capstone Games. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And I played it again, and I went back to the beginning. I played like the mini version. I didn't. You just play the fur version. You don't need to learn. I was like, no. I went back to the basics because that's how I learned. And I was like, okay. I got this. I figured this part out. Okay, I'm gonna go here. Then I figured out this, and I figured it all out. I figured out how everything worked, and when I started figuring it out and figuring out how it worked, I really enjoyed what I was seeing. I liked how I did it, and honestly, the only reason that game doesn't hit the table more at my household is 1, my wife still doesn't like it, which is always a big hurdle, and 2, every time we reach for Arkwright, we always kind of slip our hand and pick up 1846 instead. Right. So just by virtue I have an 1846 means Arkwright isn't getting played as much because my group tends to like that game more than Arkwright because they like the logistics of the train tracks and stuff and the stock market and how that works. That's the only reason. But yes, Arkwright, if you would have asked me to rate that game when I first played it, it would have been the scale couldn't go low enough for that game. But I turned around on it, and I really, really started enjoying what it did, and I really like to play it more. It's just unfortunately, I can't find the people who want to do it. They want to play 18xx. And honestly, that's really not a bad problem to have.
There you go. All right, on to you now, Andy, and. I'm going to guess that for Andy, it was the exact opposite experience. Andy was so excited by the time he finally got Arkwright. I'm pretty sure that he ruined his first copy with drool and then had to buy it again. And unfortunately, Andy, you won't be hearing from Andy at this exact moment. I assume he's going to be back on in just a minute. For the time being, you'll instead hear from me. Right, because it would be me next. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys that my next game is a game that around the same time that I was getting into Concordia is when I was really getting into just the hobby in general. And I had Andy teach me a game, and my first game of it, I wanted to punch. I mean, just punch. I just wanted to punch.
It's a punch.
Just, yeah. I mean, non-discriminate punch. Just, just whoever just so happens to be in the wrong spot, I'm sorry, I needed to punch,
You're just collateral damage.
Space alert. Yeah.
Okay.
The one that I turned quite a big 180, and a big 180 before this podcast ever even started. So if that tells you the ancient history of me and my awful first experience, a lot of that first experience was me trying to learn a game, and performing and learning at the same time is extremely stressful, and Space Alert makes the absolute worst of that experience by making everybody count on you, and it's very difficult for the rest of the group to involve you in any way unless, you're just like not needed, and then they don't involve you, and if you are needed, you usually just fail. So anyway, that was my first experience with Space Alert, but I've certainly turned the corner on it.
Nice.
Yeah, well, that was next up for me. Trent, moving to you, sir.
And this is the last one on my list, and the one that I think could be the most fun to talk about, and that's 1830.
Ooh, nice.
Oh, I miscalled this, dude. I thought it was going to be Dominant Species. I called it in the chat.
No, I like Dominant Species right off the bat. I just realized very quickly that I didn't like it at 6.
Okay, all right.
My first game of Twilight, my first two games of Dominant Species were at 6. And it wasn't the game that I disliked. It was the fact that I felt like at 6 players were locked out. But that's a different subject entirely. 1830, the first time I played it, was a teaching game with a guy that got very upset because I didn't know what I was doing because I accidentally caused his trains to rust and made him go bankrupt. So he threw a bit of what I would describe as a mild temper tantrum, and I walked away thinking, okay, that was an odd experience. My second experience with 18XX in general game, I think it was 18. I don't remember which one it was. But it was with a group of extreme APers.
Oh my god! How long
extreme
did that take?
APers, like really bad. So after my first 2 games, I'm like, this stuff's not for me, man. I'm not with this. I'm not.
AP will kill almost any game.
What?
I say AP will kill almost any game for you.
Yes, AP analysis paralysis taking forever on your turn.
Eventually, later on, I had good games of various games in the system, and there was a point where it wasn't actually 1830; it was 18 Max that really changed my feelings about the game system. Since then, I've been a big fan of it, but I realized that 1, it's got to be played with the right people, and 2, well, yes, AP can kill any game
for sure.
But yeah, my first 2 plays of my first one was definitely 1830. I think my second one was too, and they were just misery experiences. They were really bad.
Yeah.
So why on earth did I play a third 18XX game after the first 2 were that bad? I don't know, but I did, and I'm glad I did.
Well, Trent, I have now played 15 games of 18XX, and I know what it is. I had a horrible first experience with it. But I think that I've had my, I feel like I've been punctuated with enough games where I felt like for one reason or another, I wished I had never started the experience in the first place. And that's like when you have that feeling in a game, when you realize at that moment that right now you are in a place and looking into a future that you wish you wouldn't have to do. Like it's something that is very difficult to ever come back from. I'm impressed that you were able to do it from the beginning because I did not realize that you had a rocky start to 18XX. I
bet you can guess the circumstances of that second APing game.
Yeah, we've both been through the APing game with, I believe, the same probably group of APing train game individuals. So
yes.
I'm just really glad that when it came to 18XX games, I started with 1846 and did it with a group of people we were all learning the system with. That I can't imagine playing something beyond that as a first time with people, without having your feet wet, at least know what's going on. Trent, you have my admiration.
Yeah, that's quite a big number and quite a big thing to keep at it. So
anyway, that's my 3. So
yep,
there you go.
That was Trent's, I guess, quote unquote, number 1, but It was the final of Trent's list, and it was the most surprising to me. So TC, follow that.
Okay, mine. I only did a few as well, so I only got a few more to talk about. But we can end it. Mine is. I'm just going to go straight to the top here. Mine is. I could put almost any GMT game on here because, those games, man. But the biggest prime example for me is Dominant Species. Man, there, and again, this is was largely determined on the group of people I played it with, the setting I played it in, and all that. And it really hit me hard because I'm a biology major, and I was really looking forward to this. And then, what it did, and then something happened at the end where something scored again, and it swung everything crazy, and all these cards came out, and volcanoes blew me up, and that game literally felt like I was holding on for dear life just to stay in the game, right? And I'm just like, this isn't thematic. It just. I got glaciated. I picked the wrong turn, the wrong action to take, and I just watched it all fall apart. And it's just, oh my goodness. And again, I was playing with people who really knew the game, and it took me several plays of Dominant Species, and I just stuck with it because it had spiders and insects. I'm like, okay, this game's got spiders and insects. I don't have any game on my shelf that has spiders and insects in it. I've got to keep playing this thing. There's something here. It's on a 3rd or 4th printing. Is people like this? I'm missing something. And there are people I know, like Edward Fryer. he calls it BS. I mean,
Tony Fryer or Edward? Are you talking from Heavy Cardboard?
Yeah. He does. From what I can tell, he doesn't like dominant species. There's a lot of people, podcasters and people I know, who still refuse to touch this thing because they say it's too swingy, that it's not balanced. And I even played with a guy who just literally looked at me and said, "This game does not work. How can your bugs even know what to do? That doesn't make sense." And I had to calmly explain to him that insects have intrinsic knowledge. They don't have to be taught anything. They just do it on their own. So it makes sense. And he got really red in the face, and I thought it was kind of cool. But yeah, it took me several plays of this one.
Yeah,
and what turned the corner on me was understanding that dominance scored one final time at the end of the game. You have to plan for that. I mean, the card.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, if you don't plan for that and you let someone run away with it, they're gonna beat the leader and win the game. You have got to be aware of that. And once you realize that, you can cope with the cards. You can, the cards, they aren't as random as they seem. They can be devastating. Make no mistake. They can be, if the right combination comes up, they can be horribly devastating. And it's really difficult for some gamers to be playing a 3-4 hour game, and like 2.5 hours into it, watch a combination of cards wipe you off the board. It can be difficult, but it's a good game. I grew to like it. It is the most aggressive cube pusher I have ever seen. And in general, I find that Chad Jensen's games are very divisive games. From what I've played, Welcome to Centerville, Urban Sprawl.
Urban Sprawl is so underrated.
Yeah,
I'm like one of the 5 people in America that like it.
Yeah, I'm like the 4th one. Yeah, and there are, and even even Dominant Species, the card game. There's a good game there. You just have to get to it. It's just his games in general are very divisive, and I think it's because he really rides this line of he's a war gamer, so he wants things to be chaotic and confrontational, but enough balance between players to keep things going if you know how to balance it out. But yeah, Dominant Species is at the top of my list in games that just rage me out. But the more I played it with the right group of people, the more we enjoyed it. And I love that game now.
Very cool, man. Well, it wasn't on Trent's list, but it was on yours, which I wouldn't have pegged that for you. But it makes sense, TC. Hey, Andy, why don't you give us a double feature since you're just now joining us again?
Yeah, lovely internet issues. This is why Mediacom Tech is coming tomorrow, and he doesn't know it yet, but he doesn't get to actually leave the house until it's fixed, even if I have to break his legs. So
pictures.
Anyway.
Andy, you just off the hinges now, man. You're just like I just say what I want, just freely. Just keep it coming, man.
It's my secret plan, so I never get hired again. Anyway,
all right, salty Andy.
All right, it's been one of those days too. This is why I stayed away from social media today.
Good job.
Probably a wise choice when you're in a bad mood, man. We could all use.
Something came up, and like the first response that came to my mind, I'm like, this is not something I should type, and I should stay off Twitter for the rest of the day. Anyway, yeah, I have 2. Let's see. And I don't know if these were unfair. I think these were less to do about game and more to do about non-ideal situations.
Okay.
So the first one out of my last 2 here is Dungeon. Because the first time we tried to learn this, it was like, I think it was like an end of the night game. We tried it at like 9 p.m. It's just a hard teach of a game, let alone if you're trying to do it. And then just the teaching and learning was a little rushed as we tried to get into it. And I just remember sitting there and being very growly the whole time for me. Just feel like
Andy was sulking.
Yeah, I was not.
He was
circumstances that day, but later on I came to really enjoy the game. So, but I think that was less to do with the frustration of the game and just more to do with just a very not ideal situation to have tried to play a game like
Andy,
that.
Really
that
about you need to get a chance to play with the pieces, read the rules. You need to really mull a game over before you should play it. So,
right, especially more complex and difficult games, because throughout my whole life, like, my processing speed is just a hair slower than is ideal. And so if I get to the point where I'm still processing rules and then I'm expected to play to some degree of proficiency, like, I can get very, very frustrated by that experience. And Dungeon Lords is one that I really, like, before I really sat down to play that with people, I really probably could have used to read through the rules. Even better to have sat down with the pieces and kind of played around with some of the puzzling aspects of how you beat the adventurers. And that would have been a much more positive experience for me. And as time went on, that kind of got better to where I really enjoyed playing Dungeon Lords. But yeah, that first experience was pretty frustrating. The other one that I hated beyond all reasonable belief, because it was really unreasonable at the time, but Isle of Skies.
And you actually turned around on this one? Like, you're okay with this game, Andy? I figured, this is one of those not 6 hours long, it's not worth my time games.
Well, no. Yeah, see, the problem with Isle of Skies.
Isle of Skies, it's just one guy. SKYYE.
Oh, it's not Sky. Yeah, screw it. I'm not playing again now.
All right, well, he hates it after all. I knew it.
Yeah, no, I really do. No, honestly, what had happened in this situation was, and, as I tell some people, one of the reasons I go to game night is sort of a mental self-care for me. Weirdly, mental self-care for me means beating my head against numbers and rules and complexity to the point I can't think about anything else but those numbers, complexity, and whatnot. And what had happened is we had this 3 or 4 week stretch at game night where it was just light after light game, and I was getting just more and more annoyed at existence. And so we were there that night, and Jim was like, "Here, let's play Isle of Sky." And I was sitting there, I hate this game. I don't stupid thing. I don't want to see it again. And then later that night, I think some of the people who knew me well, like Joe and Nate and others, were like, we to murder everyone. We need to do something. And so they got me to play Agricola, and seriously, it was the clouds parted and the sun shined down on me, and the world was a happier place, to where I remember playing Isle of Skies a week or 2 later again. I was like, oh, this is an alright game. This is kind of fun for a light game. I don't know why I hate this. And honestly, it was just you could have thrown any light game in front of me that day, and I would have wanted to throw it and the person out the door. That was totally a me thing. But yeah, no, I loaded through the game that night, and I just I went home in my mind repeatedly saying how awful it was. And then I played 2 weeks later after I'd gotten a heavy game or two going again and kind of gotten my brain reset liking existence again. And I was like, oh wait, no, this is kind of enjoyable. Let's see, it's got some options. That's kind of cool. And but yeah, Dungeon Lords and Isle of Skies, not so much the game as it was, or less than ideal situations of playing those games for me at that time.
Sure.
Well, Andy, I can safely say if you ever manage to get up in my neck of the woods, my daughter would have no issue playing Dungeon Lords with you, because she is hooked on that thing. So I don't know if that would help you get over or make you want, if you want to play with someone. It's
I like the game now. I played it a couple times since, and I really enjoyed it. There's actually one game that I think
and Andy is gone, which was kind of to be expected. Andy's gone. Thank you to listeners for understanding and being patient with our audio problems, our internet problems coming on Andy's end. He is gone for right now, so unfortunately, just gonna have to jump on to.
Okay.
He's back. He's back.
Okay. Hey, Andy, what do you have to say now? What's the final thoughts of Andy about this?
Oh, final thoughts. There's one game I think would totally make this list if we could get Joe to play it again, and that is Brussels 1893.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. This is a great example. I've not had a chance to turn around on that game, but I definitely, my first game of it was just very there's a lot of things that I didn't understand what I was really doing. And then by the time that I understood it, the fact that I understood it and knew what everybody was how everybody was playing, I got really frustrated. But I do think I agree with you 100%. This is one of those that I like it a lot more now, even though I've not played it since that first time. Just understanding that I was not fair with some of the things that were jerk reactions the game.
Right. Well, and I think we're all slightly more. I don't know what the best term of involved gamer. We're more experienced gamers now, to where you can look back and go, "Nah, I was stupid." The complaints I have are not valid.
Yeah. All right, well, I had another one to mention here before we finish it out. I think this is the last one because you guys. Well, no, I think TC, you.
I have one last one.
Okay, great. Mine's Mystic Veil. Mystic Veil is a deck builder, but you're never building. Actually, you're not adding cards to your deck. You're instead adding sleeves to cards in your deck. And I did not realize the nuances of what you can put together on other cards. And the way that they play with the push your luck element of starting your turn is something that I did not understand how this system actually worked because of how unique this system was to anything I'd played before, and how much I felt in a game like Dominion, push your luck just doesn't belong. And the more that I played and thought about it, no, Dominion has a high amount of randomness, and if you don't acknowledge that, you're really just lying to yourself. Mm-hmm. Mystic Veil has its own form, and you even have a little bit more control in some ways. The random card selection was something that at first really turned me off, and now I understand that yes, it's something to shoot for, but it kind of gives you an idea of what direction you should take in building your deck. So I think Mystic Veil is much better now than I ever thought it was when I first played it.
Yeah, Mystic Veil's funny. It's the one of the few games I know of where you can actually craft your own demise. Right? I've seen people build a card together that did nothing, that when they played it, it hurt them in some spectacular fashion. It's amazing to watch that. But yeah, if you don't know how to craft your cards in that game, it can really come back to bite you in the end.
Yep. Let's go to old Mystic Veil. TC, what are you finishing us off with?
Okay, this might actually come as a surprise. The one game, and this even upset me more than Arkwright. The one game that I played that absolutely upset me more than any other game that's currently in my collection was Cosmic Encounter.
Huh.
The first time I played Cosmic Encounter, we played it with 3 people at 3. For the love of anything that you claim is holy, do not play Cosmic Encounter at 3 players. That is a lie on the box. Because what ended up happening was the 2 people who were playing against me thought it would be a lot of fun just to make sure I didn't win at any cost. And I took it so freaking hard in that game. I mean, it was bad. I got beat down in the most spectacular way I've ever had a beat down in my board gaming career here. I swore I would never touch that thing. It was broken. It was random. Hated it. Didn't even want to touch it. It wasn't until a game storm at our local convention where we played it at 6 with my daughter that I saw the immense amount of fun and catastrophe that game could be if you went into it with the right mindset. And that was my biggest flip I ever had on a game was Cosmic Encounter. Because that first game I played, oh my goodness, it was such a rotten, and this was with my wife and one of my good friends, and I hated every second I had of that first play I had with it. But I don't know, with more players, with more interaction, with more people being jerks to each other instead of teaming 2-on-1, it actually is a lot of fun. If you can come to terms with a lot of what that game is doing, it's actually a pretty fun game, and I enjoy it quite a bit. How's that for a surprise, guys?
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm surprised that your first experience was so rough, but when you say that it was with 3, it sounds like that's not the number to play it with.
No, that is, if we ever did an episode where it's like, player counts that are wrong, that is like at the very top of my list. I'm like, I can tell you right now, 3 at that game is the most miserable time you will have with any cardboard on a board ever, ever, ever.
Very cool. All right. That was our topic of games that we misjudged. And now moving along to the hype of this episode, which I'm going to start off with a game called Takla. I was really interested when I saw this posted by Eric Martin of BGG, the kind of release. Apparently, this is not unheard of to see games that are primarily a wood construction, largely like laser cut, the sort of laser die cut wood pieces. And this is like you're putting wooden blocks up to make a sort of abstract game that has potentially a little bit of, it's got quite a bit of like stacking to it. So I suppose that you could call that dexterity, but it's like a game that to me looked very, very interesting, and it looked like a good one to like bring to like Gamers Club, because it is a very simple premise where you're just trying to build a structure that touches a ball in the center. But it looked like, the way that you actually do this is going to be interesting and unique. So that's why Takla looked cool enough for me to mention it as my hype today. So that was me. And now I'd like to hear from TC. What's going on with the Lord of the Rings card game?
Oh, it's a big surprise. I'm going to be hyping Lord of the Rings, like digital card game again. I know. Put your shock aside. I just want to continue to say that I am very impressed with the way Fantasy Flight Interactive is handling the open beta of this, or the early access. They're handing out more free cards. They've actually went back, and the scoring system was like screwed up somehow. So they addressed that. They gave people who went through that extra views, Palinmore views. And they are listening to the community feedback and addressing issues they are having with the game. We don't know exactly what the final monetization value, what they're going to be doing with it, but it's very encouraging to see them understanding that this is a high-profile license they're having, and there's a very vocal, passionate fan base behind it, including people who played the physical card game, including people who just like the license itself and the books. They seem to be treating with a high degree of respect. And it's really nice to see a game that addresses community feedback and makes changes. So I'm still playing it. I think I'm up to like 62 hours now on it on Steam. I could check right quick, but I'm honestly kind of scared to.
Yeah. Well, avoid this, man.
Yeah, so but
make that a public figure.
Yeah, I don't want to make that, but people are posting decks to play with and figuring things out. So yeah, it's still a lot of fun. Oh, I said the answer. It's still very strategic, and I'm still enjoying it. And I still haven't seen anything that is indicating that's going to really fly off the rails and be something that might not be something you want. So yeah, it's still holding up. It's still in early access. I still say it's worth the $8 to try out, because you're giving you free stuff that's going to carry over when they release the game. So that's my hype-ish thing going on with the Lord of the Rings card game.
Well, cool, TC. Shame on you for dropping the F-bomb, but cool.
I know. It's going to have to edit it out. That's a lot of work for you, Joe.
Nice. And now from Trent, the new economic game coming from Freedom and Free. So I think this one looks pretty cool too.
Yeah, they posted the rulebook a few days ago, and I've been reading it. The game is Futuropia. It's economic game for 1 to 4 players, coming out from Stronghold, which seems to be Friedman's preferred publisher these days.
In the U.S. for sure, I think.
Yeah, it seems like this is definitely on his heavy end. Like,
oh yeah.
Having read the rules, like, this seems definitely heavier than Power Grid, and I don't quite. It's one of those where I think I'm going to have to sit down and solo this to really understand how it works. But it's very intriguing. It's got like kind of an action selection thing going on. It's got a lot of dudes moving around in ways that I'm not really understanding. The theme of the game is you're trying to basically build a self-sustaining colony for you and like your close family and your friends, I guess. And it's interesting. I don't know for sure what's going on with it, but I read like I said, I read the entire rule book. I didn't quite get it. I will say that it's one of those games that has a basic game and then like a full game. And the basic game seems like the heavy equivalent in heaviness to Power Grid. The full-on expert game, I think it's going to hurt my brain. So it's definitely, I would say it's definitely on his heavy end. And I'm looking forward to it. It's one that I'm definitely going to, I'm pretty sure this is a gimme for me because I've liked a lot of Friedman Freese's games. If nothing else, they're creative. I would give him that. He tries different stuff with them and does things that are way outside the box, like 504. That was
that's way outside the box.
Anyway, I'm very much looking forward to this. It looks quite interesting.
Very cool. I'm interested in this one as well. I've been taking a look at it and following it. So yeah, when this one comes out, I think we'll definitely have ourselves a game of it. And now from Andy, you are excited to be playing a whole dollop of content of dogfighting games.
Yeah, it's insane. But I think I hyped it maybe last week or the week before I was on. But I managed to get all of the rules to Blue Yonder by GMT Games, which I got a couple weeks ago. Holy moly, there is a lot more in there than I thought there was. Because when you look at the initial reviews of most people, they just talk about the dogfighting aspects. So you're playing cards in like a World War II airplane dogfight scenario. I've read through those rules, and it really seems like it should like really make you feel like you're in a dogfight. So like the core mechanism is going to be a lot of hand management, but you basically want to tail an aircraft. There's mechanisms for being at different altitudes and how that affects your card play. So basically all the statistics that would normally go into a dogfight in three-dimensional signatures game are taking place lower to the ground where you get more horsepower, you get to draw more cards. If you dive down, so you get to draw more cards, but if you try to go up, you get to lose cards. You have wingmen that are going to be involved, and it's all about setting up that shot and shooting down the other person. That seems like to be a whole game in and of itself, which would just be a thinkier sort of take that hand management game. But then you throw in campaigns, and I don't even know how that's going to fully work. Like, I got to reprocess that completely. But it would involve doing things like, you could even have teams of two, and you're discussing, okay, we're going to send these resources and these bombers and this escort. Things can come in on different turns. They have mechanisms for actually dropping bombs and trying to do damage to the targets and how many victory points that turns out to be. You can get to the point where if you really want to get crazy at campaign, you can keep track of the fuel that all your planes are using. See if you have enough gas to sustain the missions going. So what seemed to be a fairly sort of light-ish game to start with, wow. There's layer if you really want to dive that man. It
looks really cool. I mean, when a game system has had this much time to like be refined, I think you end up seeing quite a bit of a finished product. And I think that's why you're seeing like layers upon layers, because this was not all together at the same time. This is like kind of an anthology collection that GMT has published in from a certain series.
And
so
I read one of the fun things about GMT is the designer notes that are always at the end of the rule books, right? And I read through those, and I'm just like, oh God, these war game designers are on a different level, because he's talking about the equations you use to like convert World War II ammo gun firing potential into board game mechanics. Like, there's apparently math equations to do this so that you simulate it properly and all that. I'm just like, wow, I did not know that kind of stuff went into making these games. That's kind of interesting.
Well, very cool, Andy. Thank you for telling us about Wild Blue Yonder. And ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to an end of this episode of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. Hope you all have a great week of gaming, and catch us next week on The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.